services such as Cricket Wireless. AT&T blamed the outage on an incorrect process used as it expanded its wireless network. Jenny Coselda, Fox News.
Intuitive Machines says its lunar lander, which landed sideways on the moon's surface last week, is expected to stop working tomorrow. The company says the craft is solar powered and sunlight will just stop shining on its solar panels tomorrow morning. It's a couple days short of the week or so that NASA and others had been counting on. On Wall Street, the Dow lost 62, the NASDAQ minus 20. I'm Lee Silasera. This is Fox News.
This is Lawrence Sutton with the Tennessee Legislative Review, and I got in front of me my good friend Chris Morse. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great. Just always in a rush. You know how that is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not busy, I guess there's just, what do you do?
I think we
get
need
bored?
to add a couple more hours to the day and go to 26-hour days.
I wonder how that would work out.
I don't know.
I mean, I would have to have at least half of that for sleep.
It's like it's like trying to eliminate this daylight savings time where you don't have to spring forward and fall back. I know the state has voted to do it. I wish they'd hurry up and do it. Leave the time alone.
Leave it alone, or if you're going to do it, let's just keep going back. I like that extra hour of sleep. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we don't have too many days in the hour to sleep.
That's right. That's right. Hey, listen, I want to tell you, a bunch of us got constitutionalized on Saturday up in Mount Juliet.
All right. I heard.
And I really encourage all the listeners to go out there and Google and look up on YouTube, read up on Chris Ann Hall. It's a female attorney, constitutional Christian attorney. Chris Ann starts with a K, K-R-I-S, and Ann, A-N-N-E, all together, Hall, H-A-L-L. Look her up. She brought a lot of great information to folks. I know you were talking about maybe the nullification. She is encouraging everybody to talk in a different tone than using the word nullification, right, because it actually can be a turnoff to some of these squishy trans Republicans.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't care about their feelings.
I know.
I mean, their feelings does not overtake my facts.
Right. Well,
I shouldn't even say my facts. That's kind of arrogant. But their feelings don't overtake facts.
What she's trying to do is approach it and do a little bit of reverse psychology.
Right.
And a great idea about how she brought this about. But one thing that I will tell every listener out there, you got to understand the federal government is not, they don't tell the states what to do. The states tell the federal government what to do. We are their boss. They are not our boss. They have 18 enumerated powers that's bestowed on them by the Constitution. And, you know, honestly, there's roughly 537 agencies created by the federal government, and only 49 of those agencies are legit agencies that have those enumerated powers.
Right.
So look how many we got to get rid of, nearly 500.
You know, to me, it's a government overreach, and I keep going back to when Obama was running for the first time in 2008, and Obama said that before he would be done as president, he would have a standing army inside the federal government larger than any army that we currently had. And you know what? I think he's gone about and done that, because most of these agencies that you're talking about, they're all getting Glocks and ammo and AR-15s or M4s. I mean, they're all being loaded up. I mean, why does the Social Security need, you know, AR-15s, and why do they need 9mm when and I say that, you know, I know you're looking at me kind of cross-eyed, because I'm just putting it back on them when they say that me and you shouldn't have it.
Well, I'm fixing to load the gun.
Okay.
Because Social Security is not in the enumerated powers.
I know that.
That's one of the IRS is not in the enumerated powers. The FBI is not in the enumerated powers. So we've got a lot of government overreach that needs to go. But we're going to have to put people up there that think like you and I. We're going to have to elect people that will do the right thing. We have elected too many people over the years that ain't worth 15 cents. You know, and it's sad. We're going to have to elect Christian, constitutional conservatives.
You know what's crazy? I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and we were actually talking about this very subject. And one of the things that we were saying is, I grew up in the 80s. And I honestly, when I look back and think about my civic lessons
in school,
it was almost nil to none. And I'm going to tell you something. I think it's being done on purpose so people do not realize what their rights are. So as rights are being taken away, they don't realize they've lost the right because they don't understand our Constitution. They don't understand government's duty. And government duty, you know, the one thing that the U.S. should be doing right now is protecting our border. And they can't even do that.
They don't know whether the leadership up there in the White House don't know whether they're washing or wiping.
Oh, I believe they do.
They do.
I'm telling
trying
you.
to paint a picture to let people understand we have been snowballed. There needs to be term limits on every office.
Mm-hmm.
Every office. Every constitutional office out there needs term limits.
Well, I tell you, the thing is, and it's kind of funny. I'll be honest with you. I'm ambiguous when it comes to term limits because I think we already have the power of the term limits, and it's called get your butt out and vote. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, let's get them out. The only advantage I can see, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, and you know, because me and you do this a lot. Mm-hmm. The only advantage I can see not having term limits is when you get somebody in like we have, like Joey Hensley. You know, that does a super great job. I would hate to see Joey term limited. I'd hate to see
Clay Doggett or Kip
Capley. I mean,
Todd Warner.
Yeah. So I mean, the power for term limits is in that vote. But here's the crazy thing.
And I can't agree with you on that statement.
Yeah.
I can't agree with you.
If we have the vote.
If we have the vote.
I'm not sure we have the vote.
Let me give you an example right now. And, you know, I want to come back to the Constitution.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about the office of sheriff.
Yes.
We had a great one in here Friday.
Man, that's another guy I don't want to be term limited.
Yeah, but we need to kind of talk about it. I know he already knows these things. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of sheriffs out there that need to read their Constitution, and they need to understand it and uphold it.
Right.
They need to uphold their oath, number one. But we'll get back to that in a second. But let me give you an example. I'm dealing with an issue in Giles County. People have got up in arms, and you may have heard about it. I know it's been on the news a little bit. We need to do a better job of covering things, but Christians, conservatives, need to do a better job as well.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of times the preacher in the pulpit, and I'm not talking denomination, I'm going to talk about a preacher in the pulpit.
Right.
They need to be up there preaching the gospel. They need to be telling it like it is. They don't need to veer from the Bible whatsoever. But some of them do. But they also, that you need to educate your congregants. I know in some religions they have deacons. In some religions have elders and deacons. Some just have elders. But those elders and deacons, their job is to educate the congregants as well. And where I'm going with this, in Giles County, in November of 2022, there was a referendum, and a lot of people don't read the ballot until they go in there to vote.
That's
and then
right.
they're thinking, well, I had one calling me Friday. Who do I need to vote for? That was the reason I was calling you. I can't always be accessible to my phone, but I will call you back. And they said, well, this is the reason I didn't know who to vote for Trump delegates or how that worked, So that was
Kip Capley, Clay Doggett.
Well, there's two good ones right there. But anyway, people were asking this question. Then there's delegates at large.
Right.
Okay. And I'm going to hold that thought. But there was a referendum in November of 22 on the ballot in Giles County, a liquor by the drink referendum, where it made Giles County, if it passed, that you could apply if you had a business, a little restaurant out in the community, just like in Lawrence County at St. Joe or down at Leoma, you could apply for a liquor by the drink permit through the state. It has nothing to do with the county. This is all handled at the state level. Well, guess what? The state has a zero, hear me folks, a zero footage requirement from a place of public gathering, such as a church, a daycare, a public park, a school, all this. Where in Giles County, and I've been wanting to find out what Lawrence County's beer ordinance, we have on the commission, there's a beer committee.
Right.
For beer permits.
Right.
I think it's made up of 5 county commissioners unless something has changed over the years. But in Giles County in 2004, 2003, I was the guy who had it at 1,000 feet.
And you know what? I don't know if it's 500 or 1,000 feet here, but I do know this even. If somebody goes to get a beer license and there's homes within a certain, and it may be 500 or 1,000 feet, they even have to get permission from those homes to be able to sell the beer.
So y'all got a kicker on y'all's, okay? I talked to one of your county commissioners. I don't want to call his name. He said, Chris, I don't know, but I need to know.
Right.
And I appreciate that honest answer.
That's right.
But I was wanting to look at it, and somewhere from the time I come off the county commission in late 2006, that has been reduced to 600 feet. And that's to accommodate somebody who wanted a beer permit that was less than 1,000 feet. Come on, guys, good old boy system. Let's talk about it.
Right.
And if I make some commissioners in Giles County mad, you got the same pants to get glad in. Because I've got some of my Republican county commissioners who kind of talk like the Indian said, white man talk with forked tongue.
Right.
Where they're kind of trying to play both sides of the fence. You got to be spot on.
You know who owns the fence?
The devil.
The devil.
I understand Satan owns the fence.
Yeah.
So you got to be telling people like it is. Number one, it needs to go back to 1,000 feet. If I make somebody mad, there again, get glad, because I'm going to tell you like it is, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Now, the thing is, people get these two mixed up. They're trying to say, well, the state issued a business over in the Bryson community, a little community sort of like Revelo, okay, to you guys. And they issued them a liquor by the drink permit. They should automatically get a beer permit, okay?
Right.
Well, what the commissioners need to be thinking about, there again, I want every one of you to hear it. All 21 of you in Giles County. What you need to be thinking about, if you automatically say, okay, they should have a beer permit, you just threw the 600-foot rule out the window. But you know what else you've done? These people that have been denied a beer permit because of that 600-foot distance,
right? They can sue you.
They can sue you.
Absolutely.
And I don't have my JD, and I didn't do like some attorneys, get it out of a box of Cracker Jacks. I don't have one, but some of them, I think, did get it out of a box of Cracker Jacks. But anyway, and if I make some attorneys mad, you got the same pants to get glad in as well. But the thing about it is you can't have it both ways. Now, there's a standalone beer permit and there's a standalone liquor permit. I think the state needs to get up off of it Clay Doggett, Kip Capley, Todd Warner, Senators, Janice Boland, Joy Hensley. Y'all need to be looking at this. There needs to be a little bit more teeth put into that, because I know there's a lot of paperwork that they have to fill out, but like I said, my understanding, there's a zero distance requirement, and that needs to change. It needs to mirror what the county's requirement is in that respective county if it passes. But everybody's up in arms. How did this happen? Well, let me tell you how it happened. November 22, roughly 5,036 people went to the polls to vote, Lawrence, and that's 25.22% of registered voters in Giles County. Right now, we have 19,971 registered voters in the county. So if you divide that by 5,036, you got 25.22% that showed up to vote. 3,484 people voted yes. 1,552 voted no. So that's how we ended up with a liquor by the drink for the county. We made the county virtually what we call wet.
Yeah, and you know what? The bad thing is, and I want to bring up this point that you had, you were going down when you're talking about the church and not getting involved and not preaching the word of God and not even getting involved in their local politics. I'm so tired of hearing separation of church and state. You have no idea. If you say those words, you are illiterate when it comes to our Constitution. I'm sorry.
They are.
That's just how it is. I will give anybody $100 that can show me in the Constitution that it says separation of church and state. It does not exist. Now, I'm going to bring another thing to the pastors, and I'm not trying to pick on the pastors, because guess what? I am just as guilty. You're just as guilty. We're all guilty.
You're actually trying to help them.
I am. But I want people to understand this. Do you realize that if we had the pastors in America in 1776 and before, we would not be America? And I'm going to tell you why I say that. Because the people that were being recruited, you know where they're being recruited out of, Chris?
Out of the church.
Out of the church. Do you know who was leading those recruits?
The Black Robe Regiment.
The pastors.
The pastors.
The shot heard around the world. Everybody's heard that. Even when you take a third grade history course on American history, we all talk about the shot heard around the world. That was done by a pastor who was leading his congregation against the British. And hear me out, people. You know why they did it? One, they were going after John Adams and John Hancock, I believe.
Hancock.
Okay. But the other thing that the British were doing is that they were going door to door and they were taking everybody's weapons. Does that sound familiar to you, Chris?
That sounds that's tyranny.
It is absolute tyranny, and that's the reason our forefathers gave us the Second Amendment. And it is not to be monkeyed with. It is not to be changed. I don't want to hear people say, well, they weren't envisioning AR-15s or these weapons of mass destruction. No, what they were viewing was the government had muskets, and so should the people. It wasn't that when the government had got a hold of better weapons that the people should still stick with muskets.
With a lesser weapon.
That's right. They're supposed to be the same amount. Okay.
And I hear that. I've even had.
Oh, I have too. It pisses me off.
I've even had police officers to explain, well, we're not in the age of muskets, and that's when it was written.
Right.
Well, they need to educate themselves. And this is what I'm saying is so important about Chris Ann Hall.
Yes.
She could really educate and bring people up to speed, but you got to be willing to learn. You never get too old to learn. If you do, you're going to die.
That's correct.
Okay. You never get too old to learn, and it's always better to have an ounce of knowledge and wisdom than to go without it. So you can always put something in your bucket or in your toolbox. But, this is, like I was saying, over in Giles County, this has become a hotbed topic. And people were saying, well, I didn't know it was on the ballot. Well, number one, it gets published in the paper. Well, people don't take the local newspaper like they used to. People don't read it online. People are going virtually uneducated. But that's where the churches can step up to the plate, swing, batter, swing, and step up to the plate and educate their congregants. And
are these people going uneducated, or they've turned it off?
A lot of people I really don't know how to really answer you on that. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is,
it's a devil's advocate's question.
What we have done little by little, we have constantly gave Satan an inch here, a mile here, 600 feet over here. We're constantly moving the bar.
That's right.
If we would only follow our rules and our laws, we'd be a whole lot better. But hey, listen, folks, I'm telling you, there are a lot of unconstitutional laws on the books.
Here in Tennessee.
Here in little old Tennessee.
And there's more laws that are being brought up to be voted on that are unconstitutional. I'm going to tell you, and I had a conversation with a couple of different of our legislators.
Yes.
And I'm telling them, it is so bad how the system is. It's like they have to go and they feel like they have to write these bills to get a feather in their cap in order to make it look like they're doing something.
Is that look at me, look at me?
That's right. That's right. And I'm not doing it, I'm not saying this in a mean way. But you know what? You know where we need to start congratulating our legislators? Is when they start looking at laws that are on the books that shouldn't be on the books, and they're getting rid of them.
Law reduction.
Let's have law reduction. And in my opinion, Chris, and me and you agree on this, all the time we'll agree on this. If we follow the 10 Commandments and we follow the U.S. Constitution, we don't need other laws. Period. End of story.
Right. If we follow exactly what the Bible says and exactly what the Constitution says, we'd be in a whole lot better shape today. And, there are a lot of people who sacrifice their lives for this great United States.
They have.
The blood, sweat, and tears from our forefathers and the people who founded this country. This nation was founded on the principle of God Almighty. And hear me, this taking prayer out of the schools, and you may have heard me say before, when I was in the third grade, we used to kind of fight over who was going to read the daily devotion out of the Bible.
Right.
The principal did a prayer and the pledge over the loudspeaker, over the intercom system, as we called it back then. I don't know what all's being done in the schools today. People who go and visit the schools would have to educate me. Are they doing the daily pledge at the beginning of school?
They are.
They sure not reading a devotion. Well, I don't know if they're all doing the pledge.
Right.
And it's so sad in this state that we had to pass a bill on what flags to display in the classroom. And hear me, folks, and if you get mad, I'm sorry. You can tune us off anytime. We're not here for the alphabet people.
Right.
We're not here for you to put your flag in the classroom and to groom our children. You teachers who are doing this should be fired immediately. And if your director of schools is not getting rid of them, get rid of the director. Get rid of your school boards. Flip them. You got to do something. We got to quit sitting back and being complacent on our do nothing.
And I want to bring this up too when we're talking about this, because it's so very important, because this is not being taught in school. The Declaration of Independence, we had 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. Okay, Chris, do you know that 5 of them, so 10% of the people that signed the Declaration of Independence, were captured and brutally killed and tortured by the British. Okay? We had 9 who fought in the Revolutionary War that died from their wounds in battle. We had more than 24 of them that had their homes burned and destroyed. We had some that lost their own children fighting in this war. At what point, if you do not think that we are in a war, right now, we are in a war of the mind right now. We are in the war that from culture right now that has taken Jesus Christ out of our country. And if you don't think we're in war, we are. And I hate saying this to people, but we've been talking about this now probably close to a year. We've got to start doing something. We've got to get involved, or we're going to go just like everybody else. We're going to go right down the wayside. And I don't want to go without a fight, but I'm going to tell you there's a reason why, and I'm seeing it, why America is not mentioned in the end times. But we have Russia, we have China, obviously we have Israel. We even have Iran and Iraq and Turkey.
And Lebanon and Syria.
Yes, but no, the greatest nation in
Earth.
History is not mentioned in the end times. And Chris, I'm sorry, there's going to be people that disagree with me, and that's fine, okay? But I take the Bible literally. 100%. It is unerred Word of God, and that frightens me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, is it going to happen tomorrow, or is it going to happen 200 years from now? Now, I'm not telling you that. But I am telling you that for my children and hopefully future grandchildren's sake, I got to get involved. And if you don't feel that way, I understand. But get out of the way and don't try to stop progress, and don't put your nose and get involved with things that you don't understand and you're not trying to help.
You know, Saturday I was around a lot of good legislators and encouraged several to come, and I wish more were there. Our legislator, our House and Senate needs to hear Chris Ann Hall.
Right.
Every sheriff of all 95 counties in the state need to be hearing her. And it will give them the courage, and it will load their gun. I'm saying, and I always try to paint a picture, having an empty gun is doing you no good.
That's right.
But if you got the bullets to put in there, she's giving you the ammo for your Constitution and for your office. You are a constitutional office, and you are the highest elected person of that county you represent, and you have more power in your county than the governor of Tennessee and the president of the United States. Now think about that.
You know, I want to change subjects here real quick, because there were some things that we were talking about last Friday with John Myers here,
right,
about the border, and I really want people to understand what we're seeing happening right now. It is a constitutional crisis.
Very much.
And I'm going to tell you something. There's part of me that is proud of our state for doing this. And there's part of me going, why does our state have to do this? But on Thursday, we are putting in and we are sending more troops to Texas.
Thank God.
I know.
God bless Tennessee.
God bless Tennessee.
God bless those troops.
God bless those troops. And you know what? God bless Bill Lee for maybe going against some of his things, because I'm not so sure he's Republican. I'm not so sure he's conservative.
And I'm right there with you. I agree with what you're saying.
I mean, he's done some things and have said some things that I would not expect from a man of God. But you know what? Guess what? I have too, and so have you, and so has most of us.
Right. We are human.
We are human. But I am going to say this. He's standing up. He is sending troops to help Texas. And this we are under an invasion like we have never seen before. We are having Christopher Wray, who is the head of the FBI.
What a joke.
I know, but when this man is saying, and it's scary coming from him, but when he is saying that we have more chatter going on right now about terrorist attacks on America
within
than even before 9/11.
It's frightening.
But we keep going and going. And you know what? This is another thing. It's crazy. I mean, I want people to understand, and I keep throwing numbers. I understand things through numbers. Okay? That's how I understand
you and I
things.
Both.
Okay? But I want people, so I'm going to try to explain to you the way I understand it. But since the Biden administration has taken over, we have 6 times more military-age men that have come into this country illegally than we have troops. 6 times more military-age men. I want people to really think and let that set in.
You know, we were seeing, I was watching something on Fox News over the weekend where busloads were going into California of these illegals.
Right.
And being, I think, up in San Diego or a little bit further up in a very nice area of California.
Mm-hmm. San Diego's beautiful, by the way.
And these people, and there were Chinese.
Right.
Or they could have been Koreans, they could have been Vietnamese, they could have been Japanese.
Right.
I doubt if they were Japanese, but they could have been North Korea.
Right.
But they were standing there. And these were 55 passenger buses, like Trailways or Greyhound, letting them off. And they were just scattered. And there was taxis and Ubers and Lyfts backing up to pick these.
Because these people have money.
These people
They are
going somewhere. And we talked about it. China is building their own army within the great United States, people.
They are.
Believe it or not, they're training, they're doing live firing, live ammo in some parts of Idaho. The worst thing we ever did as a nation is let foreign nations buy our property.
Right. I'm going to tell you something. You have to jump through hoops to buy property.
Let's go to Germany and buy some property, or France. They ain't going to let us. Or Poland.
All right, let me get you this. Let's go to China. Let's go to China.
Oh, you ain't going to buy nothing in China.
No, you can't buy nothing in China. And you know what's even funny about this? And I have some friends that are basically off the bus, except they're legally here from China. And so they still have family in China. Some of them have come over here in the last 10 or 20 years. But they're telling me that what they're seeing in America right now is as bad, if not worse, than what the Chinese people are dealing. When we talk about how China doesn't have freedoms, they're telling me that the freedoms here in America is starting to look like China. It's starting to look like communism. I mean, what have we done, Chris? I mean, what are we doing as a country?
It's frightening, my friend.
I mean, we have people that are fleeing communism. They're coming here. You want to really make somebody mad? I want to tell you how you make somebody mad. Go talk to the people that suffered under Castro in Cuba and ask them what they're seeing in this country right now from what they fled when they were children or what their parents or grandparents told them. I mean, Chris, we have a man in Tennessee right now that his offense was to pray at an abortion clinic. He wasn't threatening anybody. He wasn't stopping anybody. He was just praying for these women that were taking their babies into these clinics to be murdered. And we've took some archaic, stupid law that was under Clinton called the FACE Act
in 1994.
Okay? And I'm going to tell you something. For other people, guess what, people? I've read it. Okay, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I'm not an attorney, but I'm having a hard time figuring out where they got the definition of is out of that bill to charge this man, to not only arrest him, but have him looking at 11 years in prison. This is not happening in New York. This is not happening in California. It is happening here in Tennessee.
In Centerville, Tennessee.
And there is nothing that our government of Tennessee is doing something.
That's right.
So if you want to talk about I'm going to say it because I haven't figured out another word yet, the nullification of the 10th Amendment. If you want to know, then how would you like it if it was you, based upon your beliefs that you might have done or you might have said?
Our statements that we makes you a target.
It does.
By the leftists.
It does.
Okay. By those idiots that are running the White House.
I'm telling you,
I keep saying it. I'm just.
They are evil.
They're evil. They're evil. They're beyond evil.
You cannot be that incompetent on accident. It is impossible. I mean, even a damn clock that is broken is right twice a day. These people are never right. I mean, they're never right. I'm sorry.
I like the way you put that. That's pretty good. If a clock is broken, is not working, it's going to be right twice a day.
That's right.
That's true. That's good. Hey, listen, I am very proud of our one U.S. representative, Andy Ogles.
I know. God bless you, Andy.
Andy, we want to give you a great plug here on the show. And, you know, he's being crucified because he stood up, and in Gaza, he said we should kill them all.
You know why? And I hate saying it.
It's because it's what the Bible says.
Well, I'm even going to take it a step further. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. And if you really understand what that's being said, that's the clean English version of what they're saying. But let me tell you what it really means. What it really means is that there will not be one Jew left alive in Israel. It is a complete Holocaust. These people will never stop, and here again, people come at this through ignorance. I try not to be ignorant. I can be wrong at times, and I can be self-opinionated. But when you go read the Quran and what the Quran says, these people, just like me and you, believe in Christ and that Christ is going to come back. Well, they have their Messiah, and it's called the Mahdi.
Mahdi.
And they believe that until every person in this world is either murdered and killed or they submit to Allah, their Mahdi can't come back. So they have a whole nation in Israel that will never bow the knee to Allah. They won't even bow the knee to Christ even. Okay? I mean, I'm just speaking facts here. So a person that is a true Muslim and they truly believe what their Quran and their Hadiths teach them, they believe that they cannot have God come on earth until either everyone is destroyed and killed or they submit and convert.
That's their Mahdi to come back.
Their Mahdi, yes.
So, you know, one thing about it is, you know, Andy and I haven't always agreed on every subject, but he is really doing a great job in D.C. He was the only congressman from the great state of Tennessee. He made the top 20 congressional members that's up there that's doing strictly what they're there to do.
But you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I've met Andy, and I've looked at Andy from afar, especially during COVID, because he stood up to a tyrannical Bill Lee, who's wanting to shut everything down. He stood up to a tyrannical mayor over there in Columbia. What's that dude's name? Justin Trudeau wannabe? I can't even remember his name.
Chaz Molder. I
He-
had to stop and think. I tried to put people like that out of my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wanted to be our DA as well.
Thank God for Brent Cooper. I'm sorry. I mean, but you know what? He stood up, and people here in Lawrence County stood up. I don't know about Giles County.
Well,
happened.
I'm going to tell you, with Andy Ogles, you don't know this. Andy and I talked. He was the county mayor of Murray County.
Yeah.
And Andy and I talked, and he called me that morning and said, Chris, I'm going to do a press conference, and I done forgot what time it was, and I really need some help. And guess who I got recruited to go up there and stand with Andy Ogles?
Who's that?
I know Clay Doggett and Todd Warner both went, and they will tell you, I called and said, hey, Andy's going to be doing this press conference. And I'd have to go back and look. I think Joey Hensley was there as well.
I'm sure if Joey could be there, he would.
Here's where we stood up to the government. And whether people know it or not, Bill Lee, hear me, Bill Lee, I know you do, but you were totally wrong in telling us who was essential and who was non-essential. And these businesses that you said had to close due to COVID, and they lost
many.
He destroyed
thousands
businesses.
of small businesses.
They can actually sue you as an individual, my friend, for loss of revenue. But we probably done gone by the 2-year statute now.
Well, you know what's crazy about it is, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, even for Bill Lee. Not that I'm defending what he did, but there was also 48 other governors that did the same thing, including Ron DeSantis, including
Abbott.
Governor Abbott. There was only one governor in the whole United States.
South Dakota.
Kristi Noem.
Bring it on.
Kristi Noem said, I do not have the authority by the federal or the South Dakota Constitution to pick and choose loser or decide what my state can or cannot do.
There's your true constitutional governor.
So I'm just going to tell you this.
Maybe Trump needs to reach out and
I got
get her for a
goosebumps.
VP.
You know what? Nothing would be happier if she had ran for president, even, in my eyes. But I'm going to tell you something. When you see that, and I see people like Andy Ogles stand up, and I will say this even, our legislators in 2021, it might have took them a little bit to figure it out that this was a scam, but when our legislators stood up and they basically did a 10th Amendment nullification, big double bird to the Biden administration saying, you are not going to make our people take a vaccine. It will be a choice. And there were a lot of them, even back then, that may not have the medical knowledge, or they didn't have the knowledge of
constitutional
wisdom
knowledge.
Or the constitutional knowledge even. Well, no, not constitutional knowledge, because most of these people came out and they signed this resolution stating we are not going to make anybody do anything that should only be held between them, their family, and their doctor. And praise God, even when they had, where a lot of them thought that these things were working, they still said, no, the Constitution is more important than my facts or my feelings, because people's facts can get wrong, including ours, and I admit it, okay? So I just want to put a big shout out there that our legislators stood up, and I'm wanting them, I'm saying all this to say this, I'm wanting them to do it again.
Stand up for Senate Bill 2775.
Right. And it's 27.
It's 20.
I got
it pulled up.
It's 2795. Bud Halsey's bill.
Bud Halsey. In the House, it's 2795, and in the Senate, it's 2775.
Yeah, Janice Bowling.
So there's been a bunch. You know, the thing about it is everybody from Jody Barrett to Chris Todd to Todd Warner to Kip Capley, I said, get your rear ends on this bill. Even Senator Hensley, he signed on as a co-sponsor with Janice Bowling. I talked to Mark Pody, another great conservative.
I'm surprised Pody hasn't signed on yet.
I think he's going to sign on because we went to lunch that afternoon, and he wrote down his cheat sheet notes. So
Yeah.
I hope to see Mark on there. I seen Chris Todd got on there today. He said, Chris, I will be on there today. I told Chris Todd, I said, I don't see you on the bill yet, cuz. But he's on there today. So we've had more people to sign on, and these are things that we need. And where people will understand your 10th Amendment is a powerful amendment, and it gives you the right to stand up and tell the federal government no. When the federal government says you will take a shot or you will wear a mask, if our governor had just stood up and said, Joe Biden and your administration, you're not going to tell the great state of Tennessee what to do. We're avoiding that.
Right.
That void is a good word for nullification.
It is.
It's null and void.
Because it's not legal.
It's right. These executive orders they do are not legal.
Or what about these darned government agencies that keep wanting to make rules and laws, and the only one that can make laws is Congress themselves.
Right.
But yet they're going to write a law?
These bureaucrats.
Yeah, bureaucrats.
Bureaucrats. That's what they are. We've got too much bureaucrats. These lobbyists are another problem.
Yes, they are.
And in Tennessee and at the White House. But I want to tell you what the goal of the Democrats are. The Democrats. They are wanting to turn Tennessee from red, a true
to blue
conservative state, to blue, to Democrat blue.
And I'm going to tell you something.
And you know what they're doing? They're going after great legislators like Chris Todd.
Right.
They're even going to come after me.
Right.
Because people that stand up for what is truly conservative, they don't want you.
Well, I will tell you this. When you are in God's will, there is nothing that can be done to stop it. Period. End of story.
In August of 22, I came within milliseconds of not being here, being able to talk with you.
Being 6 foot under.
I came close to being 6 foot under. And I tell people, the good Lord wasn't ready for me, and the old devil wouldn't have me. So I'm here, and I understand for a reason.
Unfinished business.
I'm here for a reason.
Yep.
And I see what the reason is. And I've been in politics since the late 90s. Been in it too long. But my work is not finished.
That's right.
And every time I turn around, and nothing makes me any madder than to see somebody who I put my trust in. I'm not going to say my faith in.
No, that's only for Jesus Christ himself.
I put my trust in to see they violate that trust.
Mm-hmm.
And they turn around and they do something that is unconstitutional, not Christian-like. And if you're going to walk the talk, you're going to walk the walk and talk the talk, you better do it.
Right.
And a lot of people, what they get mad at people like you and me and Andy Ogles and different ones, we just tell them like it is. People don't want to hear the truth. They would rather hear fabrication or a lie.
What does God say that in the end times that people will be going to and fro with itchy ears wanting to hear what they want to hear?
That's right.
And not what the gospel says.
That's right.
And that's the one thing I always want to strive for, is strive for bringing the gospel out. And I know I fail at it. I mean, I get mad. I'm not so sure me getting mad.
He tells you that you sin and fall short of the glory of God.
I do it every day. Every day. Yes.
He tells you that.
Yeah. I mean,
so you ask him.
As soon as I wake up, I probably do.
So you pray once in the morning and twice at night. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I think it's probably more than that, actually.
So, it's amazing. The fastest hour in radio.
We are. You know what? Can we get off, unless you got something really important to talk about, but I think I got something that's important. I want to talk about what happened to our phones on Thursday.
Oh, that's important.
And I want to give some insight on and I've done a lot of research on it. and I want to kind of give some insight. And we got about 7 or 8 minutes to go.
I just want to say this before you start. It was the big outage with AT&T nationwide. Had never occurred nationwide.
Right.
Regionally, yes, but nationwide. But AT&T come out today, and guess what, folks? You're going to get a $5 credit on your bill, but there's stipulations for you to be able to get that $5 credit. So you may not get it. It sounds like a Democrat ploy.
I was about to say, it sounds like the government to me. I mean,
well, they are a left-wing group.
They are, but I mean, and this is something for totally different time.
But let's jump on it, brother.
Yes. So last Thursday, February 22nd, the only reason we didn't talk about this on Friday is because we had John coming in, and I just felt like at that time.
We give him all the time.
That's correct, with what's going on with the border. So the federal government actually sent out 3 weeks ago, and this was done by Christopher Wray, the FBI director.
Oh, Lord.
And he was telling us that there are threats in place with our grid that they are seeing. And he also came out and said, now I haven't found this yet, but they're accusing Putin of threatening the United States about 3 weeks ago and doing harm to our infrastructure.
I don't believe I'd be worried about Putin.
Well, I not either, but I just want to say this is what they're saying, but I can't find Putin saying it. I'm not saying he didn't.
That's the Democrats saying it.
Right. So, you know what was kind of funny? And so we had the White House. They kind of started speculating. They started talking about, well, maybe it was solar flares, because we've had some solar flares, and we actually had solar flares happen Wednesday. But it was so random how this was going down. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. I'm just going to use myself as the example. So,
y'all ready for this?
So my phone was useless, as far as I'm aware of, from about 4 o'clock in the morning to about noontime. But my wife's phone, same plan, was not. Her phone worked.
Now, your wife's out of state right now.
She is out of state, but I'm going to take it even a step further. Grace's phone worked. But mine didn't.
And y'all are on this
AT&T network, Cricket network, yes.
Wow.
So,
what's
was
your
weird.
thought on that?
So, I'm going to tell you what I think it was.
Y'all listen.
I think it was a probe attack. This is my opinion.
A planned
probe attack. I've also heard that AT&T did an update like 3 days before, so it could have been a software glitch. And that makes sense, okay? But here's the funny thing about this software glitch. It was so random that I really believe that it was a deliberate attack. And the attack either came from existing software in AT&T itself, or it actually came from the cell towers because of how random this attack happened to be. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to these things, but trying to take and put 2 and 2 together, that's what it seems to be. We're having a lot of newer appliances like Alexa and these Siri and these microwaves and refrigerators and washers and dryers.
Or you start your car from your phone, or set your thermostat in your house from your phone.
So I'm going to tell you, the more advanced that we become, the more vulnerable more of a slave to technology that we're going to be. Can you imagine in 1990 if something like this happened? What would have happened? We wouldn't have cared. We would have cared less.
Right.
Would not have mattered.
You remember I used to tell people, call waiting feature on your phone
Yeah.
was going out on your front porch and hollering at your neighbor. That was call waiting.
Yeah. The other thing that was interesting is that the backbone of our internet wasn't even touched. I still had internet. So
it didn't pass the smell test.
It didn't pass the smell test. There was no power outages. There was really no power surges. And they also started in big cities and spread.
We're down to our final 25 seconds. Lawrence, it's always a pleasure to be here with you on Mondays, and want to give a big shout out to WDXE for all they do to try to get that information out to you. By the way, I want to notice on my drive in, y'all's gas jumped to 309 today here.
I seen that. And one other thing, we have our Republican Party meeting tomorrow at the courthouse, 6 p.m. Republican Party meeting tomorrow, 6 p.m. at the courthouse, Lawrenceburg.
God bless everyone.
God bless, and hope to see you everybody soon.
From the Rich Eisen Show